conducting the school corporation business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Excuse me. There will be time for public participation as indicated by the agenda. Visitors requesting permission to address the board on a specific agenda item should sign in before the meeting starts on the form on the board table. The board requests a discussion time limit of 3 minutes on any specific agenda item, and we ask that visitors make only one appearance per item. We ask those addressing the board to speak from the podium and to state their name and address. Board Policy 0167.3 dictates that personnel issues will not be addressed. Concerns about individual employees of the district should be brought to the superintendent or designee. The meeting site is fully accessible. Any person requiring further accommodation should contact the superintendent at the school corporation central office. Board of Trustees respectfully request that those guests and visitors in attendance be courteous and silence their cell phones. As is customary, we begin with a prayer. Mr. Bertrand.
Yeah. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to make it through another day. Please watch over us as we go through the school corporation's business. Please be with all the teachers and administrators as they are now into their first full week of school. And as always, please be with all those that serve and protect us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Call to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Hurd.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Everyone is present this evening. A mission statement, Mr. Merritt.
Lebanon Community School Corporation will cultivate and reach every student by influencing and enriching their lives through the power of education, and do so in a positive and safe learning environment.
Thank you. Good news, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you. As school has started, the greatest news is we are off and running with good results with all doors open. Compliments to transportation and their work in making sure that our school buses were where they needed to be when they needed to be. And to all of our staff and administration in all the buildings, we had a chance to get out on the first day. And as always, it's exciting to see the kindergartners walking into school for the first time and the kindergarten moms and dads crying for the first time. So great things happen here at the high school. We had a good TV coverage on our high school parking lot. Have 5 young men that just did an exceptional job. Their future is kind of defined where they're going to go in the military, and so we had I believe it was WTHR did a really good presentation on that. And I'm not a social media person. I would look at Jen, but if I'm not mistaken, I think they had over 50,000 views of one video, approaching 60,000 views of our video there. So that's great information. Want to compliment our high school band and Mr. Conrad. At the state fair, I believe they came in 12th. I will look to Mr. O'Rourke to confirm that, but I think they had a great 12th place showing. Again, those videos are also on YouTube if you wanted to see how they performed. Kids worked hard all summer long and did a nice job. And then our fall athletic teams are also now engaged. We have a volleyball game going on, I think, as we speak tonight. And then I'll let Mr. Tate provide a little later on his update of the facilities and the projects, but those are coming along as well. So the good news is the 2017-2018 school year is off and running, and everybody did a really good job of making sure that our students came to an open, welcome, and safe school, and we're excited about that. So that's the news I have to share this evening.
Okay,
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, item 2, approval of minutes for the July 18th regular session. A motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any questions or concerns about the minutes? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Audience to visitors. No one has signed in. Item 4, consent agenda for routine business matters. Mr. Tate.
At this time, I'd ask, this time I present the monthly financial report. These percents expended as of July 31st. Our general fund at 53.98%, transportation at 52.3%. At this time, I'd ask board approval for payment of claims numbered 43213 through 43447, and the payrolls dated July 21st and August 4th. The payrolls total $1,268,560.82. The claims total $2,036,184.24, for a total of $3,304,745.06.
Okay, thank you. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda for routine business matters, the payroll claims of $1,268,068. Let me try that again. $1,268,560.82. Claims in the amount of $2,036,184.24, for a total of $3,304,745.06, which are claims 43213 through 43447, and payrolls for July 21st and August 4th. Motion to
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any questions on those items? All right, all in favor of approving those, signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Thank
All
you.
right, motion passes. Agenda for routine staff matters, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. As has been the past practice of the board, I would ask the board consider the 4 specific classified certified staff communication and extracurricular account recommendations as a consent agenda. This evening, under classified employees, we are presenting 18 employees for consideration. 11 of those are in food service. Those are replacement positions, filling both custodial work, food service, and instructional assistant, both special education and regular education. Under certified staff this evening, I have a letter of resignation submitted by Ms. Solveig Feeney, Lebanon High School English teacher. That would be effective January of 2018. Mr. O'Rourke provided that on her behalf, so I would present that for the board's review. In addition, under staff communications, Mr. Dungy is recommending Ms. Sue Furman for 6th grade science. The science position at the middle school has kind of been a domino effect. If you recall, we had an 8th grade position opening when Mr. Kazmierzak resigned, and had quite a bit of difficulty finding a qualified candidate for science. So Mr. Dungy then went to the improvise and going back to what we know, and talked to Mrs. Furman. As you may recall, Mrs. Furman was a previous middle school teacher, and so she has accepted that position, which would then place Mr. Ed Hunter from 6th grade science to 8th grade science. So all the certifications are met, all of the licensures are correct on that. And then also Mr. O'Rourke is recommending 2 employees for teaching positions. First, Mr. Jared Miller for the LHS Culinary Arts position. Mr. Miller is a former Lebanon High School graduate and is coming in to fill the position Ms. James resigned from earlier this summer. And then Ms. Valerie Sanders for an LHS math position at the high school. So those are the staff communications we have. Under extracurricular, we have rather long list. I'll simply review it quickly. Mr. Smith from Lebanon Middle School Athletic Department is recommending for girls basketball Steve Street as a 7th grade coach. And for volleyball, we have Brandy Albry, Kelly Willman, and Amanda Scoble. Under LMS football, we have Mr. Rob Hawkins as 6th grade head coach and Ryan Williamson as 6th grade assistant, Matt Morton as 7th grade head coach, and Sonny Orai as 7th grade assistant, Mr. Brad Dunn as head coach of the 8th grade, along with Craig Fouts as the assistant. Under soccer, we have Juan Malagan, head coach, and Kayla Lethal as assistant, with Doug Mark, head coach, I'm assuming for the girls, and Austin Mark as an assistant. So that's boys and girls team recommendations. Under cross country, Matt Wilson is the head coach, Kevin O'Neill is the assistant. Under middle school girls golf, we have Jeff Schroeder as the head coach. Middle school boys tennis, Joe LePage, head coach, and Frank Hensley as the assistant. And middle school cheer has Allison Smith, 6th grade, Jacqueline Keller, 7th grade, and Mickey Folden, 8th grade. Mr. Levine, athletic director at Lebanon High School, is recommending the following positions for board consideration. Mr. Josh Wright would be Lebanon High School boys assistant tennis coach, and Miss Caitlin St. Martin would be LHS junior varsity volleyball coach, and Todd Gerbers, as the assistant varsity volleyball coach at the high school. And LHS soccer, Dayton Jennings would be a volunteer goalie coach for both the girls and boys soccer teams. And at LHS cheer, Hannah Lyons would be a volunteer coach for LHS cheerleading. And Mr. Dungy is also recommending at the middle school Susan Richardson, a current middle school employee, for the Sunbeam supervision position there. Those are the personnel and staff matters that we're presenting for the board's consideration this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so agenda items 5A, B, C, and D. I'd like a motion to consider those items.
Make that motion.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions on those items?
I got a couple. So, Ms. Finney, she'll teach until Christmas break?
That is correct. She'll teach the entire first semester. And Mr. O'Rourke is currently looking at the master schedule for second semester.
Okay. And then didn't you say there was a volleyball game tonight?
There is a volleyball game tonight. It's being played in the auxiliary gym.
Why are we okaying a volleyball coach tonight? Why didn't we do this in previous month?
Again, these two positions were of late opening. Sometimes they come late. Mr. Levine is here, and I can ask him to clarify, but with all our positions, we have unexpected resignations that come before board meetings. And so we have supervision requirements for coaches. For example, volleyball started. So I won't speak for Mr. Levine, but there are circumstances, Mr. Herr, where a person may resign. Unbeknownst to us, the position has to be filled to have supervision. It happens before the board meeting. We try to make every effort to get that information to the board prior. We don't always get that done. That's my fault. I will work to improve that. But in a lot of cases, it's done unbeknownst to us, or situations and circumstances change.
Okay.
So, Mr. Levine, if you could address the.
Yeah, that's correct. The timing is, you approved the coach already, and then we had somebody resign, so we had to decide. So we had to figure out what to do. So some of those positions were not filled, we're back and ready to see some of that resignation.
Okay.
And some of the middle school ones we've already approved though, correct? So I think we did some of these in the spring, didn't we?
There was a couple questions to Secretary myself about that.
Okay.
I guess I have a question too. If someone is interviewed by the coach, and he comes back, he wishes to keep bringing the student or anyone.
I would prefer each time each season comes about, even if it's been a former coach. We can use Coach Flannery as an example in tennis. For decades, he was tennis coach, but we always did bring him back to the board for approval. I think Mr. Herr's focus was more on, once the season starts, it's after the board. So technically, that person can't be hired and employed until they have approval from the school board of trustees. But given unique circumstances, and in every attempt, we at least want to make sure the board has full awareness of these actions, and they've been very supportive in the past, so that we don't try to slide one in unbeknownst. I don't want to speak for you, Mr. Herr, but I think that's kind of where we're at. So I would say my expectation, and the board can correct me, and if you could do that in private instead of public, I would appreciate it, but my expectation is that every time there's a coach being submitted, we've worked very hard to set up timelines where we want to make sure we get these in front of board for review prior to a board vote. So even a coach that's coming back, be it the high school varsity basketball coach or the middle school cross-country coach, they then are presented to the board for approval. Because what we're in essence doing, approving a contract and approving their employment. The board values and trusts us to make sure they pass the security clearance, they're the right person to work with the students, and the right knowledge base in the sport they're in. So I didn't mean to speak for the board on that, but that's my expectation.
That being said, there was probably communication error, that was probably what.
Oh, that's all right.
So-
Twice is better than.
I was going to say, do I get credit for having
Twice
some of
is
us submit
great.
twice
We'll take
instead
that.
of missing one?
Extra
No.
credit. Any other questions on those items? All right, all in favor of agenda item 5A, B, C, and D as submitted, signify by saying aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Permission to advertise, Mr. Tate.
Yes, this is the second stage of 4 to get our 2018 budget approved and working. So we had the budget work session prior to tonight. At this time, I'd ask board approval to make the advertisement on our 3-year capital projects plan, our 12-year bus replacement plan, and our 2018 school budgets for general fund, debt service fund, referendum debt fund, capital projects fund, transportation operation fund, bus replacement fund, pension severance debt fund, and a rainy day fund. Ask permission to advertise those, please.
Okay. I'd like a motion to approve the request to advertise all of the budget items as submitted by Mr. Tate.
Make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any questions on that? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes. Witham Partnership, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. As we've discussed in the past, Witham Health Services has approached Lebanon Community Schools in interest of becoming a more in-depth financial partner with some opportunity for naming rights to certain facilities, and we've talked about this. This has been a rather long and ongoing process, and it's just now completed the legal reviews necessary. Mr. Franson for the school and the Witham Health Services. We have reached a tentative agreement that is yet to be approved. My understanding is by the Witham Board of Directors, but should be. What I'm asking for this evening is the board's authority to sign a partnership agreement on behalf of the board once that is finalized by their board. Again, just very quick review. There is a financial contribution that Witham Health Services, a rather substantial financial contribution that they will make to Lebanon Community School Corporation. That financial contribution will impact every student. We have set up a structure where we would provide a dollar amount per student that would go to each school to support health and wellness activities. In addition, there would be a portion of that financial contribution that would also go to the middle school and high school athletic departments. And we would retain a very small amount for contingency and emergency plans. But well over 93% of the money contributed would go directly to student support services. For that contribution, items such as utilization of trainers and Witham Health Services medical support. They now have a sports doctor in the sports medicine department. In addition, then we would also have Witham naming rights to certain facilities, not some that are currently named. For example, our gymnasium would not be a Witham named facility, but our new football facility we could name Witham Services, as well as our softball facilities and our soccer facility. The pool is also not under consideration for naming. So what I'm asking this evening is, in anticipation of Witham board approval of the proposed plan, in order that we can move forward with this and not wait until our next September meeting, the board would authorize then for the superintendent to sign on your behalf. Certainly as soon as I get a finalized document, and I think we've shared that already. Mr. Franson is the one that seems to want to get this way. So I would entertain any questions at this time concerning this.
Okay, I've got a question. I was looking here on the document, and grant of naming and additional rights, and it says the right to have the Lebanon High School football field in the main high school gymnasium and at the baseball and soccer. So what is in the main high school gymnasium?
We would consider that to be the foyer. We're talking to Mr. Levine. We would hang a banner or hang a signage that said Witham Health Services, but we already had the discussion that the floor, this gymnasium, is known as Rosensteel Gymnasium. That will remain the same. They also would be, for this arrangement, things like their, what's the word I want? Not the playbooks, the magazine we hand out with all sports in it. I apologize.
Programs.
Program, thank you, Mr. Franson. So we would have prominent placement in the program. We currently, so inside there would be a Witham Health Services possibly over the concession stand, but it would not be inside the gymnasium for that. Now, we would have them listed on any advertising we have on our video display board, our new video display board, or any advertising we have with regards to the scoreboard signage that we have. I would encourage everyone to kind of take a look at the gymnasium floor. If you leave today, you'll see that that's already been clearly designated Rosensteel. The other thing that we are now considering, and the agreement does call for Witham to absorb the cost of signage. So we are looking at the top of the new press box, having a Witham Health Services banner, one of the, a wind kind of banner that would be placed on the very top of the press box, where we'll have video crews. We'll now have our coaching staffs in 2 separate facilities in the press box. And then I talked to Mr. Montgomery, looking at signage that could be placed above the concession stand, very similar to what we have here with the Herman B. Wells signage, that would say Witham Field. We have yet to determine signage at the softball fields, but something similar to either a plaque and or the screen, the nylon screen that goes on the fence. Same thing at the soccer field as well. But inside, to answer your question, Mr. Hur, it would be just in the foyer area concession.
And it says they're gonna pay for the sign, install them, and maintain them.
Correct. We're ordering them because we wanted to make sure we got something that was appropriate for both the facility size and location. But and they provided their logo. Of course, we have our tiger logo that we'll also incorporate. So what it would preclude is any additional signage coming from, and we'll still have our banners out here. A number of our local businesses purchase the banners on the football field that hang on our flagpoles, but the naming of the field itself will be towards Witham Health Services or Witham Field. Then, as I referenced, their support of the trainer, they have, in terms of the contract, agreed, and in fact have actually gone ahead and followed through with this, the employing of a trainer. And we were rather insistent that our current trainer be continued to be employed. She's proven herself to be exceptional and a great asset for the program. And so she will be a Witham employee, but will fully dedicated to Lebanon Community School Corporation. In addition to that, then things such as physicals, concussion protocol references, docs on the sideline, those types of things they'll be working. That's part of our agreement as well. So once I have all the finalized agreement, we'll also reference the dollar amount that's being contributed, as well as the specific services that will be there.
When do you foresee the first payment will be?
The payments are designed to be quarterly.
Okay.
So the total amount will be divided by 10, and then that annual amount will be divided quarterly, and checks will be received at the superintendent's office and be processed there. We've already agreed to a structured, as I referenced, a structured formula as how the money will be distributed. The different individual schools based on population, middle school athletics, high school athletics, and again, a very small component will stay with Lebanon Corporation for contingency funds.
Will this then go in like its own account, or will it go in, not sports boosters, but will it general fund?
Charles, I've worked with Kelly Starkey, who does our extracurricular accounting, and we've established an individual fund for each of the 6 schools. So that money will say like Lebanon High School Witham support, Lebanon Middle School Witham support. So there's 6 of those set up. Then funds will go directly into the athletics for the high school, directly into the athletics for the middle school, and then there'll be another extracurricular account for the administration, which will say Witham support funds. So those will all be new accounts except for the 2 athletics. We'll just deposit into the athletic account.
What about if somebody buys with them in 3 years?
Within the current agreement, we are guaranteed 3 years of funding. Witham had some concerns initially after they first approached us about the current state of healthcare. Not to get into the political side of things, but there was some concern where the cost of healthcare, different issues above my pay grade, seemed to worry them. They have every confidence that they'll commit to the 10 years. If somebody buys them, I will double check with Mr. Franson, but we have a legally binding document that they would have, if they bought with them, they would buy the document, would be my guess. That's a good question. I'll find out and get an answer to everybody. Okay. The other thing, as well, in addition to, it is a partnership, and as a partnership we have we just don't want the finances, we also want to be a good partner there. So we will establish, for example, a Witham night at one of our athletic events and encourage their employees to come. Mr. Levine and Mr. Smith will be providing athletic cards to be distributed as Witham sees appropriate, not to all their employees, but to said employees. We also will be, during the high school scholarship event at the end of the year, we will be out of this money providing a scholarship to one of the managers or one of the trainers that we have, one of our student managers, student trainers. We'll recognize them with a Witham scholarship. Right now it appears to be $1,000 or $2,000 scholarship. That would be part of that fund, but it would go to recognize a student and provide them with some post-secondary financial support. Other questions?
I see here, it says early termination after 3 years. Is this something that after the first year or the second year, can you go back to them and say, do we get 3 more years, or is this gonna have to be tweaked again in 3 years?
No, in the contract, if you review, I don't know the specific language, I can find it and send copy to. It clearly states that one or the other party has the right, but there's a time limit you have to do it, and it has to be in a written manner. So they just can't say, we're just not paying you this year, we need to know well in advance.
Okay.
Likewise, too, there is benefit to us if we were to have and I don't envision this, but if there were to be a better offer somewhere, it also allows the school corporation the opportunity to withdraw from the agreement with no punitive, either financial punitive or legal punitive damages.
And the same terms for us after 3 years, 30 days.
That option.
This is a good deal.
But I believe it is. We've had private conversation, not private, but we've had internal conversation concerning this. I'm very happy with the end result. I compliment Mr. Franson. Had to work long and hard. This was much more complicated than I ever thought it would be. But in the end, I think the financial benefit and the collateral support they'll provide us with, both training support, medical support, and access to the medical facilities, really is a very positive step forward for our school corporation.
Okay. So to clarify though what we're voting on, we're voting to give you authority to sign an agreement before the next meeting.
If that is deemed necessary. If it doesn't, trust me, I'd rather have you guys look at it and sign it. But this is just on the off event that their board approves it, they come back, they want to finalize things. Our football season starts here, home event. Well, we have middle school game here tomorrow night, and our first high school game is the 24th of August. So if we have to have some signs up, I'd rather have a signed agreement in hand before I put a sign up on a building. So,
Makes sense.
but yes, that's what we're voting on, is
Okay.
the option that you're allowing me the authority to sign on behalf of the school board.
Okay, very good. Okay, I'd like a motion to give Dr. Taylor the authority to do that if necessary before the next meeting for the Witham Partnership.
Make a motion.
Okay, a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Public Library Board appointment, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you. By statute, the Lebanon Community School Board of Trustees has a position on several boards around the city. We have the Park Board, we have the Library Board. We have there's school board representatives also on the RDC Board. And so we have an opening on the Lebanon Public Library Board. Previously, Ms. Barb Sears, former teacher at Perry Worth Elementary, had held that position. We've had educators hold it for a number of years. I did ask Ms. Keith if any board member was interested in serving. I know Ms. Scott serves on the Park Board as a designee from Lebanon Community School Corporation. In light of the fact that the board members were more than generous in allowing us to go to an interested staff member, I'm recommending a Ms. Brittany Gunter, who is a first grade teacher at Harney Elementary, serve as the board's designee on the Lebanon Public Library Board.
All right, I'd like to a motion to approve Ms. Gunter as our representative for the Library Board.
Make the motion.
Okay. A second?
Second.
Any questions on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Recommendation for approval of school improvement plans, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you. We did provide each building principal, with conjunction with their school improvement staff in the building, has developed, and annually they do this, a school improvement plan that is then submitted to Mrs. Scott and to my office for review. We have done those reviews and provided those to the board for your review. What we're asking for this evening is the board's approval of those school improvement plans. We have identified several typographical errors, but the content I'm very comfortable with, and principals are here this evening if you have any general questions. But this is a DOE requirement that has to be submitted by mid-September. We've done it annually, and so I would entertain any questions from the board, or principals are here to answer any specifics that you may have for individual schools.
Questions on those?
Does the DOE ever check?
They check submission. I don't think, Mr. Herr, they check content. I will
Yeah.
tell you, they never check content.
Okay.
But they do check submission, so if we don't submit them, then that we get gigged, and somebody comes and slaps my hand, I slap Ms. Scott's hand, she in turn slaps the principal's hands. But in my 12 years as superintendent, I've never gotten a call back wanting to ask a question about our school improvement plans. And I wish they would, because they're very good plans.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of thought goes into it. It's a
A lot of
collaborative
work.
effort between administration and staff. It is really a guide, a road guide as to how we're moving forward with some goals. But again, to answer your question, no.
I guess, as I looked at, there are some teachers that are gone, so you don't have to update that.
That's some of the typographicals that we'll have to update.
Those,
There's
okay.
dates in there. I think there was one that said 2016, 2017.
Okay.
We need to go through and make that 2017, 2018. So those are just some fine points that, you read through 6 of them, as I know everybody did. It's sometimes you look that stuff over, or you overlook it, excuse me. So Ms. Scott's gone back through that, and we talked about it today a little bit. She got out her red marker, and so we'll send those back. But
Okay.
we would ask the boards consider, if in content and in overall presentation, if the board is happy with those, we would like to have an approval this evening so we can go ahead and finalize those and get them off the DOE.
And do principals go back to those at the end of the year and do any kind of assessment as to how things went? Or is-
Again, I won't, they're available to speak. I will
Sure.
say this, as we go through the evaluation process and we talk about some of where we're at, it is a roadmap. And so if you go at the end of the year and you reflect back on this is where we were. Now, there's a SIP committee. Each school has a school improvement committee that, again, is comprised of staff as well as administrators. And then they do a review process, self-checking. Now, is it to the letter? I'd say no. They might disagree with me, but I think in the overall view, they see where they need to head. But this then helps the school to move forward with the data that they've collected in a variety of ways, from assessments to both state and in classroom assessments. The culture of the school, how we're going to move forward. So we've talked about moving our character education program forward, our pride forward. It's kind of an all-encompassing. But it's not a specific blueprint. This is what we're going to do today. This is what we're going to do next month. This is what we're going to do. But it is used as a kind of a guide program. And I would offer any principal that wants to step up.
The data is the hard part. Again, when you get DOE data so late, we still don't have all the accurate data from ISTEP to be able to speak to what our goal was or what had to do with ISTEP. We still don't have all that. We started the school year, we'll be a quarter of the way through the school year into it before we can even see what the data looks like and go back to last year's plan to see if we met our goals. So goals are a little difficult to judge specifically, but
make a motion to approve the school improvement plans as submitted.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. C21 update, Mrs. Scott.
Well, good evening. Periodically, we come before the board to give you an update about what's happening in the world of curriculum. And since we've added assessment to it, this is going to be an update on what's happening in curriculum and assessment. And based on some feedback I received last fall, we decided to go about this in a little different way this time. So at this point, I've asked Mr. Martin to queue up a video we prepared. And then when it concludes, Mrs. Ottinger is going to provide you with a little bit of additional information as well.
For well over 7 years, LCSC has been involved in the Curriculum 21 initiative, known as C21, which began with mapping the curriculum based on the Indiana standards. As part of C21, a cadre was formed, comprised of teacher leaders and administrators representing all 6 of our schools, as well as district leadership. The C21 cadre meets a few times each year as somewhat of a checkpoint for the work and to review feedback, as well as to collaboratively plan ahead. In June of 2015, some teachers from the cadre shared that our teachers needed additional training and guidance regarding assessment, which prompted us to reach out to Karen Bailey for assistance as a highly regarded national consultant in the area of assessment. Karen provided a variety of sessions during our digital literacy conference in August of 2015. Then she began working with all of our teachers in January of 2016. We recently asked Karen to provide some insight regarding this work now that she's spent considerable time working with our teachers and administrators over the past 2 years.
Highly effective schools in this country have been working collaboratively to answer the questions of professional learning communities. They've been digging into the questions of what do we want students to know and be able to do? How will we know if they know it? And what do we do if students do know it? And what do we do if they don't? This school corporation decided to take those questions, the questions of professional learning, and broke them up into 3 phases of work. Over the past several years, teachers in this district have been deeply engaged in the first question, answering what do we want kids to know and be able to do. They've been working in teams to dig into their standards, to figure out how deeply their standards go, to make sure that their instruction is aligned to the depth of knowledge of those standards, and finally, to lay out those standards in a plan, to determine how do we know which of those standards we'll assess and where. That first phase, phase 1, has been focusing on the question of what do we want kids to know and do, and has focused primarily on curriculum as data. Now we've begun in earnest phase 2. Phase 2 of this work focuses on the question, how will we know if they know it? Here we're working on assessment as data. We're taking the assessment year-at-a-glance documents we built, where we laid out our standards into units, and we're building powerful, high-quality assessments designed to give teachers and students the information they need that tells us what they know and what they need next. We've studied item design. We've studied test layout and construction. And this past summer, teams of teachers, K-12, have come together to put their first works of art on the intranet for teachers to use. Teachers will be working this year and into next on their assessments, but when those assessments are built, they'll be ready for the last phase of the work. The last phase of the work answers the question, what do we do if students do get it, and what do we do if they don't? It's this last phase of the work where teachers will begin to build report cards and conferences designed around helping students share what they know. designed around communicating with parents. Which standards are kids succeeding in, and which standards do we still have room to grow? In working with teachers on these assessments, I'm proud. I'm proud of how hard they've worked. The caliber of the assessments that teachers have written for this first round of work shows outstanding commitment to doing what's best for kids.
We're not rewriting the tests or the curriculum or searching for appropriate material, but applying our talents to planning appropriate activities directly linked to the outcomes we need and want.
Building the assessment year-at-a-glance document has helped us to stay on track to teach the most critical content first and then negotiable standards when time allows.
It made teachers think about how we teach a skill, why we teach it, and are more purposeful in choosing activities to support the skill and standard.
It shows a deep level of understanding of what makes the best assessments usable. Usable for them, but usable for students.
We want to thank our teachers and administrators for their commitment and dedication to this intentional, student-centered, and data-based efforts. We also want to thank our Board of Trustees for their ongoing engagement and support.
So the packet of papers that you have in front of you, I just want to take the time kind of to step you through quickly, briefly, on what the teachers have been working on. So to elaborate and show you on paper what the video kind of showed. So first off, when Karen Bailey started working with us, the administrators and the teachers worked really hard on looking at their math standards and assuring that they knew what the DOK level of each standard was. So in the first sheet that you see in front of you I use 5th grade as the common example in this entire packet. So grade 5, they looked at all of their math standards in 5th grade. They laid all of their standards out by unit. So on this sheet, what you see is in unit 1, you see how many suggested school days that they're going to be spending on this unit covering these standards. So for example, you see 5.NS.1. Next to it, you see DOK 2, which means depth of knowledge 2. Then below all of that, there are a list of negotiable standards. So all standards are very important. However, as you look at all the standards in mathematics that a teacher needs to cover during a school year, they pull out the power standards to ensure that those standards are being covered. So quickly, this is just a year-at-a-glance as to when the standards are going to be taught in what unit. Then from there, we build assessments by unit. When I say assessments, all of these are district-based. So this assessment year-at-a-glance that you're looking at is for the entire district for all 4 elementary schools. This is a consensus across all 4. From there, then we worked with Karen as a district on making a style guide. So we looked at what our best practices in assessments as far as design and layout. Following some suggestions that she provided to us, that we then took that and put together our Lebanon style guide that teachers follow when they put together a summative assessment. So the next sheet in your packet is a 2-sided paper that gives our guidelines, and you're more than welcome to read through that. The next stack of papers is actually a math grade 5 unit 1 assessment. So over last school year, including this past summer, grade level lead teachers from each building at each grade level got together and built assessments. So I just provided one example for you. The assessment that you're looking at follows the style guide that we created as a district, from how long your name line is, to how many spaces go between questions, what are best practices, following our best practices that are not only industry-wide, but also what students are exposed to on national testing as well. And you can look through all those different questions, but the following document is called an assessment blueprint. As we worked through this summer, I feel like teachers' responses to us were that this assessment blueprint was probably the most powerful tool that they did. And if you want to lay these side by side, I'll walk you through this real quick. It's kind of like a roadmap for the assessment. So looking at item number, so question number 1, if you're laying the blueprint next to it, I'm just reading across the top here. The key is your answer, so it tells you what the answer to question number 1 is. It tells you what standard question number 1 is addressing, what DOK level the standard is, what DOK level the question item is. Then it has an I can statement. The I can statement is basically, so this, by following this standard, as a result of performance on this standard, what can I do? So it's telling you, I can multiply whole digit numbers. So that's the point of this question derived from this standard. Followed by the next part, which is the rationale for distractions. So if you look at question number 1 on the math assessment, there are 4 possible choices. One of them being the correct one. So if I am taking this assessment and I answered B, which is incorrect, what's that tell the teacher? What data are you getting from it? So it's telling the teacher, any student that answered question B, this is why they got it wrong. So if you look at question 1 just in itself, you can see the power behind each question. It not only gives you the right answer, but it tells you if a student answered something other than the right answer, why they missed it. So now you can go back and reteach. You can figure out where the gaps in learning are and try to close those gaps. Surmountable amount of work went into creating these assessments, as you can see. So every single test question has a layout that's the exact same way. As far as units, if you look back, I always tell you, so math in grade 5 has 5 units. There are 5-unit assessments that the teachers did the exact same thing for all their assessments. And they're being reviewed this year as they go through by all the grade level teachers that were not part of participating over the summer. So you can see the amount of heavy lifting and heavy work that went into it. The last thing that we did this summer was the last sheet in your packet, and it's called an I can statement. Summative assessments are not sent home because they're reused each year, kind of like our I-STEP testing. So what does a student need to know after they took this assessment? What can they do, or what can't they do yet? So it's more user-friendly. So if I got question number 1 wrong, what's that mean to me? Just like that I missed something? You know, it's telling me that I'm just not there yet on multiplying whole digit numbers. So you have an opportunity to see where you have gaps and what the teacher then can use that, or the student can use that to try and fill in those gaps. This is just one example for 1 unit for 1 grade level. This was the work that's being done that you saw in those pictures, and the ongoing professional development that we've been receiving and working with the past year and a half. And Diane and I and all the principals are more than happy to answer questions based upon anything that you just saw.
So this is what the parent does.
So at this point in time, the parent requests or has questions regarding it, yes, the parents would, this is what they would do. And I would say this is district-wide. Mm-hmm. So it's not just one school, not just one grade level, it is district-wide.
Does it translate well to other subjects besides math?
Absolutely, all subjects. So the middle school and high school, actually all of their teachers are doing this exact same thing. Mm-hmm. So elementary, since they teach multiple subjects, so they would pick one. Mm-hmm. And so at the middle school and high school, while they also teach multiple subjects, they were asked to pick one course and then progress through it. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work. It's meaningful. It's a lot of data-driven decisions and trying to close those gaps. Mm-hmm. Very proud. I mean, it's the work that's being done it gives you goosebumps. Teachers are working so hard, and a lot of effort is going into this.
What's the rationale behind the style guide and the very particular spacings? And
so I mean, I view as if all seen assessments come home for your kids that all look different fonts, different graphics, different, just throw it out there. Not anything's been wrong per se, but it's trying to get down and removing all distractors so that you physically know what students can and cannot do. Karen, as being a national consultant, knows the research behind the best practices and the margins and the spacing to remove all of those distractors so that you can just get down to what the kids do now.
What you said, it's closer to the national standard, the way you're gonna see the national.
So they, like,
test.
and you're like, ACT, SAT, and I will also tell you that at the elementary level, like this summer when they were putting things, and we were going through, we were revamping our style guide based upon, now we're finally in it and working, and does it really work, and what's best practices for the grades K versus grades 3. So grades K and 1 and 2 haven't seen I-STEP. They're not used to seeing that. They don't know. So we modeled what the students see in I-STEP. And there are some conflicts between what the national standards would say versus what I-STEP does. But for our purposes, we're preparing them for I-STEP to do well. So like, for example, the word Part A, Part B, in bold, all capital letters as opposed to uppercase, lowercase, and underline. I mean, very specific. So they model, and then so we pulled out other testing that they're exposed to, look at how their directions are written, how AM and PM are typed out, to try to be very mindful on how we're being uniformed and what they see in other assessments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, Ms. Ottinger.
All right, item 11, second reading for teacher appreciation grant distribution. Dr. Taylor.
Yes, thank you. As we presented at the last board meeting, the state legislative requirement now for school corporations is to have an approved policy that addresses specifically how the teacher grant is distributed. If you recall, the teacher grant is the appreciation grant. It replaces the performance grant. So it's a specific dollar amount that's determined by the state. And so we presented our policy last board meeting for the first reading, and so I'm asking board's consideration, review, and approval of the teacher grant distribution policy. It's 3220.01.
Any questions on that?
No, because we did this last.
That is correct. The only two influencers are in the evaluation process, whether 3 influencers. If you are highly effective or effective, that has a different variable on distribution. If you're marginally effective or ineffective, that has also an impact. So, as we talked about, school grade, growth factor, graduation rate, those no longer factor into how the state distributes the money.
So I was not here at the last meeting. Does this need to actually be read, or has it already been read into the minutes?
No, we had a first reading, and so by statute, then this is just second reading where the board votes. You have to have 2 readings before a board vote for approval or disapproval.
Any other questions? All right.
Need to vote on that?
Yes. Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right.
I'll second it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Refinance of bond, Mr. Tate.
Yes, in your background notes, you'll see a letter from Stifel. This is a company that bought out City Securities, who usually helps us with our refinancing the bonds. So I met with Matt Shoemaker and Chad Blacklock on our bond issue of the $40 million that was issued in 2011. And it's very favorable at this time to consider refinancing, refunding this bond issue. As this coupon matures, it starts increasing the interest rate, as you can see, at an average of 4.85%, where if we would refinance now, we would get it at a savings of, a percent savings of 2.91%. So a refinancing this time is very favorable. It would net us $1 million, and after paying soft costs, we still should net around $980,000, which can be used for construction, building repairs, and so forth. So I'd like board permission to move forward and work with Stifel, and we'll also be working with UMBAW, with Ice Miller, and Kent Franson as our refinancing issue. Request board permission to do that at this time.
Okay, I'd like a motion to approve the refinance as submitted.
Make a motion.
A second?
I'll second. Mr.
in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. I'll start that process tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. New business, Mr. Tate.
Have a trip to Washington DC being requested by the 8th grade. You see a background letter from Mr. Don Polston. This was brought to Mr. Duncy for his support. He's forwarded to me. At this time, I request approval from the school board for this out-of-state trip to be from October 10th through the 14th for the 8th graders. In the background letter, it talks about the events that they'd be involved in. It's a $675 cost to the student with fundraising opportunities for the students. So ask board approval for the Washington DC trip. Also at the same time, we have an overnight request from the local FFA chapter for a camp out here locally in Lebanon for September 22nd and 23rd. Request board permission for both of those.
Okay, thank you. I'd like a motion to approve the 8th grade trip to Washington DC and an FFA camp out.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any questions on those? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank
Motion
you.
passes. Other business, our next regular meeting is September 19th here at 7 o'clock. Any other business?
No other business we have this evening, thank you.
Other business? No? All right, no other business, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.